Welcome to the Local Yokels Podcast. Today, I'm bringing one of our podcast heroes of the area, I guess, Coach Christopher Camp. And I know a lot of people just know you as Coach Camp. I am Yokel, your host, and he has inspired me to do this. So I want to kind of bring him on and let him tell his story because he's usually sitting opposite of me on this table. And I just thought maybe you could get out here and people could see your side of things more than you just talking to other folks. So start out, just ramble on, man. I know you're good at it. So.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Neil. Thank you for having me come on your podcast, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, look, it's a step of faith, man.
It is.
You know, you don't know what you're doing, but then we never know what we're doing until we do it.
That's right.
You know, that's one of the things about life. Make it adventurous, make it exciting.
That's right.
And the best way to do it is just get out there and go for it, man.
Yeah. Before we get really started, tell everybody where they can find you and the name of your podcast, and also, I guess your, Facebook page, whatever. Just give them all your socials. There we go.
Yeah. So you can follow me on my regular Facebook page, which is Christopher Camp, which you'll find that, and you can just follow along there. And then I have a professional page, Motivate with Coach Camp. In fact, everything after that is Motivate with Coach Camp, and you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and of course, TikTok. That's less motivational, more comedy, just because I like to make people laugh as well.
I was watching some this morning on my way over here. Yeah. Well, not on my way over here. Before I came, though. I was watching you and your wife. You had a Santa Claus or something in there messing with her.
Hates that thing. But it is my favorite, so I love messing with her on that.
So anyway, talk about a little bit. I know, for the most part, the Coach Camp theory, the motivational stuff, but I want to get more of the backstory of Chris Camp. I want your story from beginning to end as quick as we can. I mean, obviously take your time, but I mean, obviously I know it's a lot. It's a lot.
It can be.
Yeah.
That almost sounded Donald Trump-esque.
It's
a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I hope I got, I don't even know, man. I hope I got hair that long by the time I get his age. I can tell you that. I think it's a comb over. I'm not going to go that route.
It's a very fluffy comb over. It is a nice swoop happening.
Yeah, it's swooping. So anyway, go ahead, sir.
Sure. Well, all right. So I grew up in Walls, and you know this.
I knew that.
You live down in Walls, work down in Walls.
Yeah.
Back then, and we're talking about, the mid to late 70s when we moved down there. I was a little kid, about 3 years old. Mm-hmm. There was not much. It was there were subdivisions that were starting to come up. So a subdivision that may now have 100 homes in it may have had 5 or 6.
Right.
So it was a lot of country is what I'm getting at. Right. In fact, Goodman Road on that end of town was gravel.
Yep.
So it almost feels like horse and buggy was just leaving as we were just now moving in. It was pretty long time ago. But growing up out there, did develop a little bit of the adventurous side of me because we were out in the woods, and mom and dad were country folk. And so they just let me and my brother, as we got a little older, 5, 6 years old, take off.
Yep.
And we lived the proverbial life you've heard about from the past of just be back by the time the lights, the street lights start to come on.
Sure.
Better be home.
Yep.
And that was pretty much it. We ran in the woods a lot. We built forts, played baseball, had a big interest in baseball growing up. Turned out I was pretty good at it. So anytime you find that you're good at something, you want to do that more. And that was it. I mean, I think at the time I saw myself more as the Goonies. If you remember that movie.
I do, yeah.
That's kind of, if I had to place if you wanted to describe me in a movie style, that was me and all the kids in the neighborhood.
Wow.
We were doing adventures and we were very imaginative and creating thoughts. And in the end, it was probably dangerous a lot of times, and we shouldn't have done some of those things, but hey, we survived.
You're alive today to tell about it.
And I have stories now that some things I can't talk about.
Sure,
I still get grounded for, I'm pretty
sure. Yeah, your mom be on the
phone. But it was fun. And I didn't know what I was going to exactly do when I grew up. I just knew I wanted to play baseball, and it turns out that's real hard to do at a professional level.
Oh,
you got to be really good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there. So my parents, they were very, I would say, accepting to my brother and I's adventurous ideas, because we would come up with something, they would be supportive. And if it didn't work out, it was kind of whatever next. And getting out of high school, I thought, you know what? Doctors make a lot of money. Now, here's the important thing to know about me. I was not academically strong.
Me either, sir. Me either. So I get it.
C's and D's.
You had big dreams.
C's and D's. But that didn't stop me from thinking, well, just go ahead and climb this mountain too.
Sure,
I'll just do this one.
Sure.
And it started out into Northwest, and it was not working out. I mean, the grades were not there. And so I literally seriously went into the dean's office.
Right.
And I'm like, what's easier? I need something I don't have to learn a foreign language.
Sure.
And these math. What is the math with the numbers and the letters? And now we're doing symbols. I just want numbers. I just want numbers with the math.
Right.
And criminal justice turns out not exactly the hardest academic path.
Sure.
So I'm like, let's do that. I'll be a cop.
All right.
And turned out during that time I needed a scholarship. Ended up being a cheerleader for 2 years in college.
I believe that.
And it was out of nowhere. I've never been a cheerleader. Girl comes up to me. She's like, hey, we're going co-ed. You should try out. I'm like, that's crazy. And she's like, yeah, it's a full scholarship. I said, let's see what's the downside.
Yeah.
I'm around the hot chicks all the time. And,
Yeah. There's no downside to this.
Like, actually, you know what, Chris, this is a good move.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, 2 years. And when I was graduating, a lot of friends were going to Delta State. And I said, I really want to take on student debt. And I thought about going in the military. So I was like driving home one day, and I just kept going straight to the MEPS office, went in, told them, I said, I want to go in the Air Force, and signed up and went through the little testing that you got to do. And 2 months later, I was about to head out of here, man.
Where did you wind up spending time during your service? Like what base? Yeah.
So going into it, real fun fact, before I went into basic training, I had been talking to a girl. We broke up, and then we started talking again. I was like, you know what? What if she's the one? And I'm about to go to the Air Force. So we got married on January 28th. I went into the Air Force February 1st.
Wow.
So it's like, I'm just doing this.
Yeah.
So are you picking up on something? Spontaneity is the key. That is why I'm building this story. I'm driving down the interstate. Yeah. I'm going to join the military. Why not do that? And then it's like, maybe she's the one. Let's just get married. So I go to Lackland and go through basic training. And I was going to be a police officer, but I had gotten arrested when I was 20 for possession of alcohol by a minor. I wasn't even drinking. But that one small arrest disqualified me from being a police officer. So what I was able to do was become a satellite operator. Now, what's interesting, Neil, is you have to have a top secret clearance.
Yeah, but not good enough to be a cop.
I'm like, so I can control $1 billion. Elon Musk would be like, all right, you dare. Come on in here.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on, brother. So, I did that for a year, and that was really boring. And then they stationed me out in Colorado. So I was in Colorado Springs, which is really cool. I did love Colorado, actually. It's beautiful. Got into hiking, did all kinds of stuff out there. I was there for a year, and then realized that this was the job itself was a rotating shift constantly, and I couldn't really go to school with that. It's just, anyways, I found I was like, let's do something different. So after a year, you could apply to do something different. So I went to be a database analyst, which is extremely boring. You are keeping up with statistics on F-15s.
Yeah.
But you were able to go to school. And I said, all right, so I need to finish up my bachelor's before I go back home.
Sure.
So I can do some stuff. So I go back to tech school, end up going out to North Carolina, get stationed in Goldsboro, North Carolina. You ever been out there?
No, sir.
Well, it's Mayberry.
Okay.
It's Mayberry in that part of town. And so there was not a lot of distractions.
Right.
Which is a good thing. So I'm still in my 20s.
Yep.
And anyways, out there is where I ended up having my first kid. My son is born out there. And I was able to go back to school, ended up getting another associate's degree. And so that was in production management. It was just because I could. It was right there. It was kind of what I was doing.
Right.
So I just did it. I just did something. And then the 4 years is coming up, Neil. And I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm getting out.
Oh, wow.
So I got out. So we moved back home. Now, this is when everything changes. You ready for this?
Yeah.
You want to know some backstory? I'm bringing you up to date.
Getting it.
A lot of people don't always get this, but
That's
I can timeline this bad boy.
I want it.
So we get out, we come back home, and I get the idea, because I was thinking I was going to be a cop, but I ran into a dude that was a firefighter in the Air Force, and he started telling me, so I get the idea, I'm like, maybe I could be a firefighter. So I wanted something with action. If you haven't, satellite operating, boring. Database analyst, boring. I need something that gives me action. Now, I did get to go to Saudi Arabia when I was in the Air Force for a short stint. And that woke me up to, I'm not a combat guy, because there was sand in my boots. I didn't like that.
Right.
Air conditioning went out one day.
Yep.
That was tough. I'm like, what is going on? So it's like, I'm not digging a foxhole. So I knew that was not my lifestyle.
Yep.
So I come back home and I'm like, man, how do you get on a fire department? And I started volunteering. Guess where?
Walls.
Volunteer fire department.
Nice.
See how the circle's happening, brother?
It's a huge circle.
You start out here and then back all the way back here to Walls.
It's crazy.
And so I started out at Walls, and they say that for most people that fight their first fire, right then, this is for you or it ain't for you. And that's okay. And I can tell you it was for me. The first fire I went into, the adrenaline, just the feeling that you were doing something bigger than yourself, And there was danger involved, of course, but it's a type of controlled danger. But I was just hooked. I was immediately hooked. I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so when I got out of that, I actually started limo driving with my uncle in Walls, Robert Camp with the limousine company.
I know him.
Yes, that's my uncle.
Yeah.
And so he got me into driving limos while I'm trying to get my stuff together to go to be an EMT. And so I didn't have money, right? So volunteer fire department wasn't paying the bills. Did that for a minute and went to school, got my EMT basic. And then I'm like, well, now I'll get hired. Didn't work out. Back then, it was really competitive. It was really hard to get on a paid fire department. And my goal was Memphis because that's the big city. That's where all the action is. That's where I want to go. So anyways, I kept plugging away and I did limo driving for a little bit. And I'm like, well, I'm going to work with my buddy. So I started wiring houses. Wiring houses was really hard. It's a lot of construction work. I was like, I don't know what's happening here.
Right.
And I'm like, I just want to be a firefighter. And people started telling me, if you go to school, paramedic school, and get your paramedic, you will get on a fire department. People will hire you quick. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. I didn't think I would pass because it was hard. But when you love something.
Yeah, you'll find a way.
And it comes easier because nobody's telling you to study.
That's right.
You want to study.
That's right.
And so I started doing that. And in the meantime, I'm like, I got to have a job that kind of helps me with school and clinicals. So I went down to Gold Strike Casino.
Okay.
And became a security guard / EMT.
Now, what year was this?
That was in 1999.
Okay.
Early 2000.
Gotcha.
Sometime into 2000.
Gotcha.
And before September 11th.
Right.
2001. And so I'm working down there at the casino. I get my feet wet with some medical calls. So I've already know what it's like to fight fire. I'm excited about that. So now I'm getting wet and I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. So I'm doing pretty good on the medical side. Going through paramedic school, graduate paramedic school, top of the class, top 3. It's like, I loved it. That's why. Not because I was super smart.
Doesn't surprise me.
Loved it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I get done with that, I am working for Eudora Fire Department now. And paid EMS.
Nice.
And I remember walking into the station. I had gotten my paramedic license on September 8th.
Wow.
2001. And we know what happened on September 11th.
Yeah.
And it was like the world had changed. And I knew at that moment, obviously the world had changed, but I knew at that moment that this calling I had to be a firefighter was going to be bigger than me. I wanted to be a part of everything. I wanted to be involved in all of it.
Right.
And so that really did light an even bigger fire under me. And so I started studying and working hard because I wanted to go to Memphis so bad. And I was working in Eudora. I get hired by South Haven, worked there for almost a year. And then finally Memphis calls me. And in 2002, September, I go to Memphis finally. Right. And it was like the whole world had changed. I had worked 2 shootings in 3 years in Mississippi. I go up there, I worked 2 shootings in 12 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
My first 12 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
The game had changed, brother.
Yeah.
So I'm building all this story to tell you, though, I knew from the moment I went in that first fire in Walls, Mississippi, this was the path I wanted.
Right.
So when I get on to Memphis, I continue training, trying to push myself to be even better, end up getting on the SORT team, which is a Special Operations Rescue Team. Got on Tennessee Task Force 1, which is a regional emergency response team. We go to hurricanes, any other kind of natural disaster, but then also terrorist attacks.
Sure.
And so all of these things had culminated and kind of come together for me, and I loved it. Right. And I was excelling in all the areas. And then eventually I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to be an instructor. So I went through instructor classes, and you had to go through a series of those things. Got qualified on everything.
Wow.
And then guess what happened?
What?
So all of this is leading up to the Motivation Coach Camp thing.
Gotcha.
Both my shoulders start blowing up.
Oh, my goodness.
Surgery. I have 3 surgeries, and it's over a period of years. And every time I break, it's harder to come back.
Right.
Every time I break, it's harder to come back.
So explain that a little bit. Like you say, they blow up. So tell people what that means.
So the first injury was a labral tear.
And is this from working or working out or
firefighting?
Just firefighting in general. Okay.
So in over the period of time, obviously you're working joints, you're working ligaments. So all these things take wear and tear.
Sure.
And it only takes the one time. Well, the one time that something actually gets injured, snaps, it was a culmination of moments that brought it to that one moment a lot of times, which is what happened with me. Yep. And I go get the surgery and rehab. I go back to doing things, and it's like 2 or 3 years, and I'm still having problems, but then it like gets a lot worse. I go back to the doctor, and 2 of the 3 screws that they had put in had come out. No fault of my own.
Wow.
Tears up all kind of stuff. Then they end up fixing the labrum again, biceps tendinosis, AC joint resection, rotator cuff. They had to do rotator cuff fix on that. So basically a full overhaul. My shoulder minus just a full shoulder replacement.
Right.
And if Humpty Dumpty, there's a reason why all the King's horses and all the King's men couldn't put him back together again.
That's right.
When you get older and you start to break, boy, is it hard to get back.
Yep.
But I was determined. So I kept fighting to get back, and then ended up injuring the left shoulder, had surgery on it, and they had to retire me out in 2016. Now, you would think, well, that's the end of that, right? So he's just done with firefighting. Well, I'll be honest with you, it was a passion of mine, it was a part of my life, and I thought, well, this can't be the end.
Right.
This cannot be the end of me. And 24 hours later, I get a text message, or actually it was an email, and then a text message, and then I called and got offered a job at Southwest Community College teaching. So I'm giving everybody the timeline of Coach Camp. You want to know how things just kind of transpired in the professional world. That's where we're at. And so then I'm like, well, I could do this while I go back to school, get my PA. And in the meantime, I actually was working on my bachelor's at that moment. So whenever they called me, I was not quite done with my bachelor's degree. I had went back to school. During that time, I'd gotten a 3rd associate's degree, which is in paramedicine. So I had 3 associate's degree, which you can't add up to get a master's.
Right. You can't get a master's out of 3 2-year degrees, correct?
You can't do it. They did not let it be cumulative in that respect. So I go back to school. I'm about to get my bachelor's degree. They call me. I go to work there, start teaching, and I found a new passion. Neil, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it, man. I was talking to students and giving them all the years of wisdom and knowledge I had, and I could see that reciprocated. I could see them getting excited about the job that I had loved so much.
Right.
And I realized that I was there for a reason and a purpose, and all this stuff wasn't wasted. Now I was able to pass those recipes on to the next generation. That's something that I think people sometimes forget.
Yeah.
You go through stuff in life, and you have moments happen to you. And as long as you don't let that moment define you, you realize there's going to be a bigger picture down the road. You just got to keep plugging away. And I didn't know what it was going to be.
Right.
But now I did.
Right.
And so that inspired me. So I get my bachelor's degree, and I'm starting to less think about becoming a PA and more about this is where I need to stay. Because the classroom, there was something happening there that I couldn't explain. And I was able to just keep teaching, keep plugging away. And I said, you know what? I need to go back to school and get my master's, because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a professor.
Sure.
So I go back to school, 1.5 years in. Now, here's a dude that had C's and D's in high school. I made a 16 on my ACT. I never took it a second time.
Right.
All I cared about was just getting into junior college. I had zero enthusiasm about academics. And it's not lost on me. I'm finishing up a master's program with a 4.0.
Right.
And I'm now going to be a professor at a college.
Right.
And I'm like, nobody saw that coming.
I agree with you, but I will say, because of my own experiences in school, also similar to you, barely made it out of high school. And part of it was just the boredom of it. Like it didn't interest me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was a repetitive process from, the time you get in there. It's kind of like they're still just teaching the same things to us all the time, just maybe a little bit different level as you get older and higher levels. But man, time I hit high school, I was like, I'm over it. You know what I mean? So I barely made it out. And so I understand that part of it. You're smart, but you're just not applying yourself because you're not interested.
That's what it was.
And that's what happened to you. So once you found your interest, then you were able to apply yourself. Later in life, too, like, this is crazy. I always thought, like, man, if I could go to school now, I'd probably be a really good student because of the way that I think about things.
Right.
But that was not my focus. Yeah, that was not my focus when I was in school. So I totally understand what you're saying. So that does resonate with me greatly, and I'm sure a lot of people, because, your just interest wasn't there. And then the people that are really, really smart, it's not taken away from them. They just were able to apply it at that time and say, look, I just got to put my nose, probably more mature, honestly, in a lot of ways than I was, So I get it. They were just better at it, and I've got to take my hat off to them because I wasn't able to do it. Right. I really wasn't. So, but I will say this for you, your drive is just uncanny, as far as what you see and do. And it's unusual. A lot of people out there like that, but I mean, I know you in your personal life too. You're a very driven person. So it doesn't surprise me that you are doing all these things, because I know, I probably met you about that time when you're transitioning from a firefighter. I think that was in that time period. And so I only seen the guy that was kind of in limbo, so to speak, on where he was going and what he was doing. I didn't know the firefighter guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was really what it was. At that time when I met you, we had a few conversations about Mostly just what I was there for, not much, what you were doing. And then as I got to know you, I started asking questions, and I was just like, really like, whoa, this guy's got another gear, like I don't have that gear. You know what I mean? So it's very impressive. So it's not shocking to me at all to go back to what you were saying, but I thoroughly was impressed at your time when I met you because of the things you were talking about. I had no clue these were even possibilities. Like you were just all over the place a little bit, and I thought, man, that guy's got some energy. You know what I mean? Like that. I was like, he's definitely doing something next. I don't know what it is, but he don't even know what it is. I'm not sure, but he's next. He's doing something. So carry on from there. I was just letting you know that little spiel on the grades. I get it.
That's important. I'm glad you added that because it does play into where I was going with the conversation. In that Miss Wilhite, you know her very well. She was a teacher of mine back in high school, and she would tell you. Now, I wasn't a bad kid, so that's it. And I say bad kid. All right, let me try to define this better. I did not cause trouble with other students. Sure. I wasn't like a fighter.
You're a class clown.
I was a class clown. That's right. High energy, as you said. That wasn't different.
Right.
I was always talking and doing so. And I like to make people laugh. That's true. Sure. So looking back on it, people probably thought this guy needs attention. Honestly, I just enjoyed the moment. Sure. And it probably was a spin on attention, but it wasn't like I was, I need this attention. I just like the idea of being funny.
Sure.
So in the end, people do label you sometimes, and you start to buy into the idea that maybe you're not that smart because you're not making good grades while you're distracted and you haven't found your passion. So that, my friend, was the difference. When I look back on it, I'm like, I found the thing I was passionate about.
Sure.
And I bet right now, I don't know what the age of demographics that'll be listening to your podcast, but that's one of the things that I preach all the time to schools when I go speak at high schools, and then I even speak to elementary schools, and then of course, obviously college students. But man, find something you're passionate about. And it's not like you're going to wake up and know it. You got to try stuff. And we kind of talked about that, how like I went from one thing to the next, and I kept trying stuff. I even got 3 associate's degrees. I wasn't settling on something because I had already gotten so far.
Sure.
But once I started doing something, I went all in. And if I didn't like it, I shifted gears.
Right.
Because I knew that I didn't want to be that person I had seen growing up, where I see somebody that's, 60 years old and they're grouchy because they did this job they hated their whole life, and they got up and they went to work and they came home and they paid the bills and nothing felt awesome to them. And I'm just like, you're existing.
Yeah. I
would rather try a million things and fail at a million things than to try and be successful at one thing that I hated for the rest of my life.
Right.
And that was from the very early beginnings. And that's why I shared the stuff about Twin Lakes, because I think my mom and dad giving us the freedom to explore and kind of develop our own style and personality, and that they were not too restrictive. They didn't like constantly guard us. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch your kids.
Sure.
I am saying, though, give them the freedom to explore stuff and try things they may want to do, because you don't know what's going to click. And when that thing does click, you don't have to tell them anymore.
That's right.
They're going to do it. They're going to want it. They're going to drive for it. And so, the drive was there once I found the passion.
Sure.
And so I finished up my master's degree, and I'm sitting there teaching, and I don't know where this is going to take me. I'm in the classroom. I'm with the students. And along the way, and something that's important to also mention is, you're right, I did like to challenge myself. Not in a way to challenge myself to think I'm better than someone else at all. Not at all. I wanted to challenge myself to see what I was capable of, one.
Sure.
But then the other part of it is I like to use the stories of things I did to inspire someone else to try something. That's the absolute fact. I knew that if I could do something that made someone else believe it was possible for them, then that's the full purpose of why I'm doing something. I didn't want to just do it. It's so self-serving and it's empty. I wanted to always try to, and this is early in my days, I wanted to do something that made people believe something was possible that they never would have dreamed of. When I went in the military, I had so many friends tell me, you're never gonna make it. You're never gonna make it. They're gonna fire you. They're gonna kick you out. You're gonna get jail. And I'm like, okay, I never let other people tell me what I couldn't do. So I wanted to be the person to show you what I could do, and then maybe you would reevaluate what it is you think you can't do.
Right.
And now part of that started in 2004. You know where I'm going with that? So here it is. I've made it to the fire department back in 02. Actually, Memphis in 02. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to start challenging myself. In 2004, started running.
Yep. I just when you said that, I'm like, yep, that's probably what he's leading to. So
started running, and I thought, running past 5 miles, you had to be an elite Olympian. Right. Nobody else could do that. You can't go past 5 miles continuous. That doesn't happen. And a friend of mine was like, I'm running the half marathon. I'm like, how far is that? 13.1 miles. I said, you're crazy. You're never going to make that. And they crush it. And I'm like, why did I think that wasn't even possible? So then I'm like, I want to try that. So I do a half marathon. And then I'm like, I wonder if I could do a marathon, 26.2 miles, do that one. Well, there's a lot of stories that bleed into a lot of that I'll pass on. But the point was I started realizing the value of pushing myself beyond what I even thought all the time in all areas, not just academically, not just in leading my life by an example and pursuing things that I was interested in, but I needed mental and physical challenges too, because you really need to, there are so many avenues that build the person you're becoming. Yep. You need to challenge yourself on a regular basis. You need to be accountable, because whenever you're doing that, you're staying focused. People go through life a lot of times floating, and they're not focused. And that's why they're not really finishing stuff. They're not feeling like they're completing something. And then that actually leads into them feeling like a failure. I'm like, I want to be challenged in all areas, so it keeps my focus.
Sure.
So I started challenging myself, and I started running marathons in every state. I've now ran 33 states. That also led to me doing an Ironman triathlon, 2.4 miles, 112-mile bike ride, 26.2-mile run. Did one of those. Trained for a whole year. To this point.
Now, how old were you when you did this?
The first time I did one was 33 years old.
Okay.
And now I'm 51. I just ran one a couple weeks ago.
You did a
marathon.
Oh, yeah. But I'm talking about
when I ran the Ironman, I was 39.
Right. The last time, which is still an incredible feat when you think about it. Like, as you're aging, 33 is a good age of where you're just maximum athletic ability, most likely, in your lifetime. You're at the peak of it or something. Like, you're at the point of where it's not going to happen most likely after that too far.
I'm about to share a story with you that will blow that out of the water too.
I know, but you're thinking. Yes, I'm just thinking.
That's the thought process. But then before I did my first marathon, I would have said it would have been impossible to do the marathon for me. And then the thought of doing an Ironman, that seemed elite again. I'm like, who can do that? You watch it on TV, but it's like, how do you train for that? I didn't know how to swim distance.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to bike with my feet clipped in for 100+ miles. I didn't know how to do that. I started somewhere.
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember my first day swimming in the pool, trying to do laps. I swallowed probably 5 gallons of water, came home feeling nauseous, and did maybe a quarter mile.
Right.
It was horrible. And a lot of reasons to quit. In fact, I came home and took a nap. And I remember my wife saying, you only did a quarter mile and you got to swim 2.4 and then the rest of the race. I don't think you're going to make it. I'm like, this is day one. This is day one. Don't get caught up in where you are on day one. You got to keep pushing.
You got to go.
You got to keep going, right? So anyways, I do all those things. And so December 31st will mark 4 consecutive years I've not missed a day of running. I've not missed a single day.
Wow.
On December 31st, I have ran every single day. Also on December 31st, will also mark 3 consecutive years that I've ran at least 2 miles every single day without missing. I've had COVID. I've had other things. Thankfully, I've not had any lower body injuries that would put me out of running. But I've been able to complete 2 miles every day for 3 years on December 31st. Why do I do that? It keeps me accountable each day. The long-term stuff, the marathons, that was a distance thing. And I would have to think about that as it came up to it. I'd have to ramp up my training. But this keeps me accountable every day, no matter what. And there have been so many days I did not want to do this. And I'm like, oh, God, I hate this. And it's only 2 miles, but I'm like, man, I don't want to make time for it. But I make myself do it. And it's that mental focus. Now, to tell you all this, here's the thing. All of these things are not for me. Some of it is for obviously health benefits, but the rest of it is I want to inspire people to do stuff, be accountable, understand the process, believe that it's possible. And I got a call about 6 months ago. A guy calls me up. Back up just a bit. Can I back up just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Do you have a beep beep sound that backs up?
Beep beep.
Okay, fair enough. Back it up to 2014. I had just finished the Ironman in 2013, and I was pretty big into distance stuff. At that point, I was peak condition. I was in pretty good condition in 2013. And a guy sees on Facebook that there's a dude in Memphis that's looking to build a team to help him on a bicycle from California to Maryland.
Right.
About 3,000 miles. It's an actual sanctioned race called Race Across America.
Right.
RAM. I'd never heard of it. It didn't inspire me to want to do it. I was like, that is going to hurt my gooch area. I don't really want to do that. So a guy reaches out. He's like, you need to be this guy's medical team. You understand stuff. And I'm like, I'll meet with him and I'm going to give him some tips. Right. So we go to lunch. I didn't know this guy. Send him a message. We meet up, go to lunch. And I'm telling him all the things he needs to do to be successful from the medical perspective.
Sure.
About what to watch for, how to address stuff. And we talked for about an hour, and he's like, okay, so what do I got to do to make you that guy? And I'm like, So I don't really have 2 weeks to go on a trip. That's vacation, but I'll be glad to be a constant contact. And he's like, no, I need you. And I'm like, God, all right, I'll do it. And so I sign up for this, and I go out there and I meet him, and we take off. And he has a crew. He has a bike crew to help him switch out stuff. He has a nutrition crew. This dude went all in, and it's a sanctioned race. And I was the medical guy. Now we get 3 days into this thing, and I'm thinking, this guy spent, $60,000, and he ain't looking good.
Oof.
And I'm going to tell him he's got to quit. I think I just need to keep him alive. I got to keep him breathing. That's what I got to do. Just keep pushing him down the road.
So the race starts in California.
Starts in Oceanside, California.
How old is this gentleman?
55 years old.
Oof. All right. Carry on, sir.
Yeah. Older than me right now.
And me, by the way.
So he's going, and we make it 6.5, 7 days in, and we are somewhere in Colorado, and you had to be at certain points to check in to keep going, or they pull you off the race.
Right.
And where we were to where we had to be, he just wasn't going to make the next cutoff. And he had overcome so many things. He had hamburger butt, is what I refer to it. I don't know if that's an actual medical term, but it had gotten really bad.
It got bad.
And so much so, I was calling doctors and friends back home. I'm like, look, I'm taking pictures. And I'm like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
This is open wound time.
Oh,
and so they're giving me advice. And we actually did get back on top of it. Got it on the right path. He developed a thing called Schirmer's neck, where his neck muscles went out and his head was like hung.
Oh.
He couldn't hold his head up. Well, we get him another 500 miles down the road. He has to tap out at like 1,500 miles. He made it 1,500 miles still.
Wow, man.
And he was biking 250, 275 miles every day, sleeping for like 3 hours, going back at it. And we did this for almost 8 days. Now, on that trip, I'm not Coach Camp yet.
Yeah, you're right.
But I've been coaching my whole life,
right.
Coaching sports.
Yep.
But I'm motivating him.
Yeah.
I'm firing him up. I'm giving impassioned speeches to the crew because the crew's tired. I thought I'd get rest. We didn't rest. We're like going so far ahead, setting up camp, doing stuff for him, going so far ahead. And it's like a constant checkpoint.
Right.
We're all only getting a little bit of sleep each night, not much. And people were getting, 6 days in, you're wore out. And I'm like firing them up, trying to fire them up. Well, we get to the finish line. And I did not realize how many people in that group I was inspiring through my speeches.
Sure.
And we leave. Ed's upset about not making it. I'm super proud of him. He did something that I could never even think about how a person wraps their head around. But some people do finish that race, which is considered to be the hardest race in the world. And fewer people will ever finish that race than will ever make it to the top of Mount Everest. It is an incredible feat.
Wow. And probably not at 55 years old either.
And not at 55.
Yeah.
So fast forward several years later to now, about 6 months ago, a guy calls me that was on that team.
Yeah.
And for everybody that was there except one other person, I never knew anyone. I didn't know them prior to that day, right? So we met and we all went on this journey together.
Right.
Strangers helping one guy.
Right.
And he calls me up. He lives in Maryland. And he says, I just want you to know, man, you inspired me. And at 71, I just finished my first Ironman.
Wow.
Now, I want to tell you something. I want to inspire people, but I don't want to kill them.
Right.
So my first thought was, that is amazing. Second thought was, what if he would have died doing that?
Yeah.
And then that's horrible.
Yeah.
But he never
died doing what he loved, though.
Yes. But it's like, I don't want to inspire you to hurt yourself. But it's like, it was incredible because he shares this with me. And he's like, I would have never dreamed it possible. But he said, watching you train your wife to go do one.
Right.
And seeing her fail the first time and then come back and beat your time the second time.
Right.
Made him believe it was possible. He trained for a year. He went and did an Ironman at 71. And he told me in a few years, he's still training hard. His goal is to run Kona Ironman at the age of 75, and then he's going to hang it up. So he's still out there plugging away. But my point to all that is this, and I know I went down a long road, Neil, but it's a podcast and we talk.
Hey, man, it was all about you today.
But it's the circle of why.
That's right. It's
the why. And you know what? I can tell people about me, but you got to understand the why behind anyone, right?
That's
Neil?
right. That's right.
What inspires you? What motivates you? And a story like that just shows me you don't know what seeds you're planting.
Nope.
You don't know how long it's going to take to set.
Right.
And it can happen with anyone.
Yeah.
So whether you're sharing wisdom and stories with kids or somebody that's older, You don't know what they're holding on to and what you said that's going to change their life. And you just didn't know that. And you don't know how long it's going to take before that moment happens.
Sure.
But that just really was a glowing example of all the things that I had thought I was doing for the right reason.
Right.
I was actually doing it for the right reason. I was trying to push myself to be a better version of myself all the time. But not only that, challenge myself constantly to do something more, do something more, do something more. And it was because I knew that if I was doing that, somebody's watching me. Somebody's watching me.
Yeah.
And that's going to inspire them. And that's the point of everything. And when I'm in that classroom, and this is the full circle moment, and then you're going to rapid fire me because I've done just giving you 51 years almost. We're almost there. We're like at 58.2 is where we're going to end up because we're talking about the future then. In the classroom, the students started saying, man, you really have a great way of motivating us.
Right.
And I don't know if you knew this, college students, not always motivated.
No.
Don't always look forward to being in class.
Nope.
So I kind of started a little morning motivational thing every day. I'd come in, get them fired up, ask a few questions, get them ready to go for the day. Boom, we hit the lab. Finally, one student, it only took one, to say, you need to be a motivational speaker. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I've seen some on TV, I think, but Tony Robbins, I don't know. And then they're like, no, you really got it. You got a gift. And I'm like, no. And then the next semester, another kid says it. And then the next semester, another kid says, so finally I'm like, okay. Maybe I'm being told something I need to try to pursue. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this, but what do I always tell people like me in this moment? Try something.
Yeah.
If it's being called to you, maybe try it. And if it's supposed to happen, it'll figure itself out.
Right.
So I didn't know. Neil, this is where you come into play.
Yeah. You inspired me, sir.
So at this moment in 2016, but not only this podcast, I'm talking about where you and I met the first time.
Yeah. We were at your house and I was just coming by and dropping off. As I always try to remind people, I own a dump truck business, and Chris had reached out to me and needed some rocks for his house or whatever. I think we was putting them down for your goats or something, if I remember.
I was building a pathway to drive to go down there to all the
That's
animals.
what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. But we got done, and we're just chatting like normal, and we're hanging out and talking, and I was like, "What have you been up to, man?" And you're like, "You ain't gonna believe this." Like I've got this wild idea, but I don't know where I'm going with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I'm just working it out right now. I'm just like filming myself, talking to the camera, and I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. But right now I'm just getting ideas and meanwhile we were in your garage looking at all your workout equipment, and I was just, at this point, I don't think I ever really knew what an athlete you were at that point in time until you open a garage door and like all this crazy equipment. And I was interested in your weight set. Not for me, by the way. My oldest son, who is a diehard kind of wrestler, BJJ guy or whatever he is, and it works out a lot. And but that's when we started talking more and more about it. And I left there that day. I was like, he's got me fired up, and I don't even know what he's going to do yet. You know what I mean? So I left there. I didn't give it much more thought, and then like a little bit of time later, I started seeing you come on Facebook and doing a few things, and I was like, he's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it. He's starting right now, and then, of course, little by little, things just keep creeping out, and I see you. And then it gets to the podcast phase, and I'm like, he's on it, And I did know you were doing the motivational speaking stuff, trying to focus on that. But, I mean, I am so proud of where you went, like, with this thing. Like, one of the things I want to say is that your whole story, I think almost everybody can identify with this is, you feel stuck in life, especially when you're young, like in your early 20s, mid 20s, and you're not really sure what you're going to do in life. And you possibly have went to college and you don't necessarily want this, you don't like what you're in or what you went to school for or whatever it could be. It's okay to change gears and go another direction. It's okay. I mean, you only got one life to live, so be happy with it. And as you're talking about these different phases of your life where you've took on new challenges for yourself, and sometimes just to prove to you could do it, sometimes to prove to others possibly, and it's okay, like to change careers, it's real easy. You just got to put your mind to it. You're not letting anybody down except yourself if you don't take the opportunity. Right. So getting back to when we talked that day, that's where I think that was 2016, wasn't it? When we talked about that.
I was just now getting the house built.
Yeah.
Living in a camper.
Yep. And I was just so amazed by like that day. I'm like, because we were the same age exactly. I think I'm about 6 months older than you. So it's one of those things where like sometimes I wake up and I couldn't even fathom running to the mailbox, dude. And you're out here running marathons, you know, and that's inspiring to me. Not that I'm going to become a runner. I'm too tall and too big for that. I think it would tear my joints up now if I tried to start doing stuff like that. But I do know that is what, you know, part of that incentive to be healthy and do all that stuff probably drives you more, and you got the energy, and that goes back to being very, very health conscious. And, you know, and I applaud you for that as well, because we don't all have that either, you know. So that inspires a lot of people, I'm sure, that hears that story. But yeah, that's where you took off from, and you've done it. I mean, it's amazing. You become Coach Camp, motivational speaker, podcaster, inspiration to a lot of people. And I'm sure you don't even know the impact you've had. I mean, you certainly inspired me to get involved in this, you know. So when I seen it, I always thought, man, that's really cool. He's getting a good word out, you know. And with what I like to do was promote others and the nonprofits and things. I didn't even think of how to even possibly do that other than just word of mouth, you know, just talking to everybody. And then when I reached out to you to have us on the show for the Feed My Lambs program, when I got here and seen how you had it set up, and you got Derek as producer in these beautiful SRP studios, as we say, and we always want to promote him as well, because he does an awesome job. If anybody's thinking about this is how I got inspired. You can do it too. Yeah. You know, and this is a great product. You know, he does a good job. And, but it was very inspiring for me. And that's kind of where it led to where I'm at today, sitting across the table from you, talking about your journey, because I want people to know how I was inspired. They don't always get to hear your story, because you're listening to everybody else, you know, tell their story. But I'm very appreciative of you in my life to know that late in life you meet people, and sometimes they can change, you know, how you're thinking and what you can do, you know. So it's not always just about living in a moment. You just take the opportunities as you go, and living one day at a time is important for sure. But it just goes to show you always got this opportunity to do something new and exciting, and it may not go nowhere. This may be the last one. Who knows, you know, but I doubt it. I think I'm going to see it on through a little bit, just to kind of. Absolutely. It's not for me. It's for others, like I said. So it's really just trying to allow people to have an opportunity to show, you know, that they can do something different. Come on here, the startups, your story, where you're changing your life. I mean, I know a guy right now, you know, he's in his mid-40s, changed careers, and it's very difficult for him. But he's like, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm broke right now, but I wouldn't change a thing, you know. So, because it's inspiring for him, and it gives him drive to get up and go every morning and try to get it. You know, I think some of us lose that as we get older, for sure. You know, like you get complacent, and I don't think you're there. You're just always on, you know. And I think it's just because you love life, you have a passion for the things you do, and I really enjoy watching your speeches when I get an opportunity to see them when you post some of them. So it's really cool, and I thank you for all that. But as you say, I led into the 2016 and rambled on for a little bit, but you go ahead and finish your story.
Man, I love it. And I thank you. Thank you for all the compliments too. So look, the truth is, whenever inspiration's not always got to be literal, it can be lateral. Lateral is just you use somebody else's achievement or inspiration from whatever it is they've done, and you apply that to what makes sense for you. So just to the running thing, it may not be running for you, but it might be something else that's a personal challenge that you want to face. And
well, my fundraising is that for me.
Absolutely. So that's a great point. That is an absolute great point.
That's what it is for me. I think that I recognize the similarities. It don't have to be athletics or academics or whatever, you know, it's whatever drives you.
That's right.
And, you said earlier about the boredom of analytics and stuff with the F-16 stuff. Just bored to
not driving me.
I have a son that would love to just sit down and go through that.
My wife would love it.
Yeah, right. So I totally get that. But I want you to, at the very, you know, not that we're nearing necessarily the end, but as we finish up your story, definitely include, I want to hear some stuff about the family aspect of what you deal with, because they got to put up with you, bro.
They do. A lot of sympathy given to my wife and daughter. Lots of sympathy. You know, throughout all of that, you know, just talking about building up the story. And the 2016 part was whenever we went through a lot of changes, and I was retiring from the fire department, trying to find a new job. My wife was trying to get done to finish her Ironman. We just built a house. I was finishing my bachelor's degree. We had like 16 irons in the fire, but the idea that we were able to do that is what was inspiring me, because it was a lot, but I was like so thankful that we were doing it. And so the idea of motivational speaking, I'm like, look, we're making it through this. This is the moment. Let me try this. And I put my phone up on on a
garbage can. Yeah,
and made
you're
my
telling
first
me.
message, and then
Yeah.
things started to grow from there. But it was just taking the first step, and I think that that's so key to life. If we sit back waiting for something to come to us rather than us take action, chances are we're going to miss a lot of
You're
opportunities.
gonna miss out. Yeah.
So you just got to get out there and give it a shot. Don't be scared to fail. You know, Derek and I, we kind of came up with this thing just to give you the wrap on all of this. So whenever I started down that path of motivational speaking and stuff, things started to grow. And then you get into 2021-ish, and we just come out of COVID, and we had all this other stuff going on. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's even 2022. I'm trying to remember. It's probably 2021 or 22, late 21, because people were getting back together again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I need to know if I can do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been putting out a lot of videos and stuff, and I rented out the DeSoto Family Theater.
Okay.
So this is one of the things you got to do. So I branded.
Yeah.
I got the Coach Camp stuff.
Yeah.
I had went through all that process. My wife knows this much.
Right.
When I set my mind on something and talk about it more than 100 times a day,
It's going to happen. It's just going to happen.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
It's like she knows. And so that's what had happened. And I'm like, I'm going to rent this out. I'm going to put on a show, and I'll sell tickets, and then we'll see how it works out.
Yep.
Because if everybody shows up, then that means this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
6 weeks before the show comes, the guy calls me and says, "Hey, do you want to cancel?" And I'm like, "Why would I want to do that?" He goes, "Well, you haven't sold any tickets." I said, "My mom hasn't bought a ticket. Nobody's bought a ticket." So that lit a fire, and I started contacting folks. I ended up selling 70 tickets.
That's awesome.
In that audience,
Yeah.
happened to be Mr. Derek.
Derek.
And he liked what he saw.
Yep.
And we met, and we went over stuff. And from that point forward, we came up with this mantra of cannonball life.
Right.
Cannonballing is everything.
Yep.
If you're scared to try something, and you're scared to go back to square one, then you'll stay the path of safety.
Sure.
And safety is never always safe.
Sure.
Things can happen there too. Try life. And that's what we started doing. He brought me to here. He's like, "Look, we need to get you in front of a microphone. We got to do podcasts." Started doing podcasts and stuff. And it's grown from there. And what it always does is what life has always done for me is it humbles me. It makes me realize how important things are every single day. I've had so many guests in the studio that's been on my show that have had all kinds of stories, including yours with the Feed My Lambs and the ministry that you guys do for kids. It's just, there's so many things out there that need to have a voice. Right. And this is what this opportunity gives for me to other people, you know. Sure. And it's all self-funded. And much like yourself, sir, you jump in, you have a purpose, you see the vision, and go for it. And I don't think we should give up so easy. I don't think it should be like, well, these things aren't working out, I'm going to quit. If it's something you truly have a passion for, you got to keep grinding, you got to keep going, because you never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah. Well, this is amazing. And I don't want to cut you off from that story, but also real quickly, just kind of share a little bit about your involvement with the Hope Center.
Yeah, absolutely. The Hope Center is one of the things that came my way through the podcasting. So again, it goes to the point of when you try something that you're supposed to do and things work out, you don't know what paths are going to open up to you. The Hope Center came along, Stacy Dodd, and that's a mentorship program for children from 4th grade to seniors. And we have conferences. We have great speakers from all over get together, and we just pour into the kids. You know, we take them places. They'll go to the movies one day, or they'll go, you know, to the VR room. And I can't do those things. It makes me nauseous. But
it's probably our age, Chris.
It probably is my age. It probably is.
It probably is.
But it's just you know, giving back to the community in a lot of different ways. There's not just any one way. There's lots of ways. And you asked me about my family, and so I got to say though, my wife and daughter, and I have 2 sons and grandkids, and they're all great, man. They're very understanding. They know I'm a big personality. They know I am. And I think it works because my wife is like a type C, and I'm a type A++.
Yeah, right. And triple plus.
Yeah. And so like if she was an A+, we would probably be competing all the time. So.
Probably wouldn't even be together, man. Like that opposites attract.
They do.
They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife and I are much like that as well. Like she's very quiet, observant. She'll tell me when I'm messing up, but I'm the one talking and usually sharing more information than she'd like most of the time. You know what I mean? So I get that 100%. Yeah.
I do know what you mean.
Yeah. I get the eyes like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So my family's great. They're a part of this stuff. My wife and them, they'll come to the Hope Center events a lot of times. And anyways, I'm just blessed, man, to be able to have opportunities to do things. You already said it. We only have so many years.
That's it. And we don't know. You can be the healthiest cat in the world.
That's right.
And fall out. You know what I mean? So I've seen it. You know, you're talking about the casinos earlier. I spent some time there. I've seen people literally be on a machine or a table and just, you know.
I worked them.
Yeah, you know. That's
I was an EMT.
I was going to say, I remember one time just people stepping over a dude, you know.
True story. A guy dies at the blackjack table.
Yeah.
I go up and I said, I need to shut this table down.
Yeah, they're like,
and
no.
I'm trying to get it. And there was a dude that just kept sitting there. I'm like, sorry, the guy's dying next to you. We'll apologize. Like, get up. Yeah, that's true.
When people are gambling, I spent a few years in that industry myself as an executive host. That's what I did. And so I seen it from the other side of what you're saying. And, but I'd usually have to get involved in that because like you got to deal with people around it and stuff. So they call all hands on deck to kind of get people away from the scene or what have you. And wow, I mean, there's some really incredible things that happen in those casinos. I mean, not a bad thing, but like people are just so focused on what they're doing. They don't really, probably the guy that was dying that you were dealing with probably wouldn't. I mean, he was probably aware he wasn't feeling
probably
good.
Having bad, chest pain or whatever. He's
I got to next hand. Yeah, I'm gonna deal with this next hand. So that's what I'm saying. That's a very unusual setting. That's where people go to just forget everything. It really is. So I think there's a reason why those things are popular and exist to this day. Even though you're gonna lose, I just know that's kind of how it works. But it's a very interesting way of life, that whole life. I had to get out of it, man. It just wasn't for me. You know what I mean? It just was too much. It was never stopped. You know what I mean? I was in the side of it to where eventually it was just cell phones become a big thing when I got in it to where it's 24-hour-a-day access. And I was in a position, I had like 600-700 client list and always had access to me. I had to get away from it. So it was just, I'd be on the beach in Florida and getting a phone call about something, and I was like, whoa, this is like, I got to do something different. So exit that into the world of construction. That's kind of where I got to. But yeah, your story is so interesting. It's very inspiring. And I think that if you could tell somebody how to get involved with the Hope Center also, that's important to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find them on social media sites. It's called the Hope Center of North Mississippi. Stacy Dodd is another contact point. DODD is how you say his last name.
Okay.
And you can find all those guys on social media. There's probably a phone number, but I never use a phone number because I just always
right.
You'll see it all over.
I don't know Stacy. I've heard a lot about him. I've heard a lot of great things, especially from you and others. And people always go, "Well, you know Stacy Dodd?" I'm like, I don't. He said, "Well, I think because I'm a fundraiser and I'm out here pushing this thing, they assume that we all know each other.
Sure,
we don't. I just don't. I'd love to meet him at some point in time, but." I've heard great things, and I think it's a wonderful program y'all have there as well. And what you do in combination of with your motivating with Coach Camp and all that stuff, that's amazing too. I can only just applaud you for all your efforts and what you're doing and continue it on. And I hope that this path we're on just grows and continues to grow, and we grow the studio for Derek. And anybody that's interested, please reach out to Derek at SRP Studios. And I'm sure there'll be a link on the podcast where you can contact him. Also, Coach Camp, his podcast, always check it out. He's got some very interesting guests on there almost every week. I think you release one about a week, right?
Every single Monday.
Every single Monday.
Haven't missed one.
Haven't decided what day. I guess Derek will tell me what days my days are.
Well, the local Yokel's going to grow. Just like whenever I started, I didn't know how it was going to look. We just got started.
He was telling me we already had some followers. I'm like, wow. It's like it hasn't been a week yet. So, and I haven't got out there. But yeah, man, is there anything you want to add to it?
Man, it's one of those things where the conversation can always lead in a lot of directions. And I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of stuff. I appreciate you bringing me on your show.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to kind of give some background. Maybe somebody was interested, maybe not. But in the end, hopefully the message they took. And that's just the one thing I want them to take.
Absolutely. And I think that you're a huge inspiration. Anybody that listens to you don't know you, they're going to find like that guy's got it going on somehow. I got to get some of that. How does he do that? Let me find out. I think especially guys our age are looking for that opportunity to find something to kind of drive us. And it could be, running or whatever. It could just be donating your time or getting involved in a program like the Hope Center. I think that's amazing what you guys do. So I want to thank you for all that, all your contributions to what we're doing and growing the program. And of course, yes, the local Yokels is important to me. I'm trying to grow it. And as I want to remind everybody, it can't be done without funds. So if you're interested in sponsoring myself or Coach Camp or SRP Studios, reach out to myself, Coach, or Derek, and we would be happy to kind of promote your business or anything else, your charity, whatever you guys got that you want to go out and kind of promote. We're all for it. That's what we're doing. And we're trying to build this community. We want to help each other grow our businesses, our families, our children, everybody. We want everybody to live a good life. And that's what it's all about. So with that being said, I thank y'all for tuning in today. And next time we'll see you on the Local Yokels. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, bye.